My name is Gary. My day job is being a metal fabricator. And I do stand-up comedy for at the sidelines, I guess.
Gary Tan, everybody.
Alright,
Someone told me, hey, you know what? You should watch Russell Peters. But then and after a while I get to search a little bit more, and I see greater comics like George Carlin. Then after that, I started going to Comedy Masala for an open mic and so on and so forth.
How many of you have been to Talk About Comedy before? Make some noise. Yeah, repeat customers, they sound happy.
Gary was actually one of the nicest people I've ever met in the comedy scene. He's a very jovial guy, he's very chatty. He's a lovely fellow.
Every time I tell people I'm in the army, no one's ever proud of me. People always feel bad for me. No one's ever come up to me and be like, thank you for serving the country.
He's a big guy, wears a metal t-shirt, doesn't seem too approachable. I guess in Singapore you don't really think of anyone as really, really funny until you really see them on stage. And when you see Gary off stage, be like, this is slobbish, sloppy looking guy. How funny can he be? But he had some really, really, really good jokes if you listen to them. Very intelligent.
You were never encouraged to be funny as kids. Because can you imagine if you were a Singaporean child and you were funny, right? People would say, hey, you're trying to be funny, is it? Huh? Very funny, you're trying to be funny, very funny, very funny.
I think he's got the most unnatural style. When I say unnatural, I mean you probably won't see anybody in Singapore with a similar style as his.
So what I do is that I do this to cut him off right away. Okay.
With the cube of God, we cannot return life to our planet.
Basically, I must say that Gary is this very guy who does very morbid material, like very sensitive stuff, like stuff about death. Or literally, he revolves most of his things about death or the self-deprecation of his life.
Guy comes up to me, gives me a business card, and just looks at me expectantly. And I didn't have my own card, so I just gave him a card.
His accent, he doesn't sound like any of the other stand-ups, so he has a different way of expressing himself.
What kind of inspiration in my life do I take for doing comedy? It's usually very mundane stuff, but usually filled with emotions. There's stuff that it's tragic stuff too that I find it funny.
And he gave me a finger like this, in a very discreet manner. It goes like this. I suppose it's because he wants me to be polite about it, right?
Yeah, this is what I do when I'm not doing comedy. I think that this is a slightly different job compared to the rest of my friends. I don't usually get my comedy material from here because it's very monotonous. Surprisingly, sometimes stand-up comedians doesn't have an interesting life.
Everyone thinks that to work with your dad is a good thing, and I love my dad. Alright, I love my dad, but it's just that I hate my boss more than I love my dad sometimes. And you can't tell that to your dad.
They don't really support me initially. They kind of, oh, you have to wake up early to go and work, right? But yeah, after a while later, they kind of realize what stand-up comedy is about, or at least my love for it. So they're kind of okay with it.
I have a feeling that Gary has this very, there's a sad presence about him. But it's so interesting because you're able to, like I said, relate to them.
I think most of my jokes came from like real life experience, and it can be sad sometimes, right? I'm not sure, and I don't know how do you define success in life.
He is the most tenacious and determined stand-up dude I've ever met. I've never met anyone with more balls.
So, try the joke just now. Only a few people laugh. It's alright. The specimen will continue. Because my style is pretty different, right? It's pretty weird. So I do that. There's a lot of times where I think that I should quit, but then again, when you go out on stage, it's very different too. Okay, for me, it's when I do well, I do really well. When I do bad, it's really really bad, right? There's no in between. So after a few months of bad gigs, I said, you know what, screw it. I'm not going to do it anymore. Then after that, I do. Then after that, next time I do, it's really good. So I'm like, oh, okay, maybe I should do this again. I kind of like this. What misconception the society has with a comedian? I think that they don't know that there are people writing their own stuff, right? As a stand-up comic, you have to write your own jokes.
I hate my job. That's a good one. I mean, how many of you hate your jobs? Just give me a shout.
Hey guys, this is Gary here from #AJobSucks. Okay, my podcast is about jobs, right? It's called #AJobSucks. So basically, it evolved from me and Don and Sam bashing about jobs. Like, hey, you know why this job is bad? Guys, this is #YourJobSucks, alright? And today we have Suzanne with us. So in today's episode, we're going to talk about being a mechanical engineer.
I think the purpose of this podcast is to explore the different kinds of jobs, because it's not just your basic Singaporean lawyer, Singaporean doctor, Singaporean banker. There's so many different types of jobs in Singapore, different kinds of people, where he's exploring new ideas and new concepts and new people that you never believed existed in this little country of ours.
Gary is pretty good at asking interview questions. He has the innate ability to ask interesting questions on the podcast.
There's an episode where you talk to a prostitute or a sex worker, and I realized that it's so much easier to like make fun of a job as a prostitute, right? And I don't want that to happen. That's why I realized that I want it to be like more in depth. I don't want to be like another comic, like just making fun of people, right? I want to bring in like the human side of stuff.
Well, I guess the interesting thing about the podcast is we get to meet so many cool people.
Like, you know, like you go through like very weird things that you learn about, like bats can't, you know, like treat beetles or something like that.
And like we've met documentary filmmakers, we've met firemen. No, like these are people that I wouldn't normally speak to.
The thing is that it's not saying whether that job sucks. The question is that, does your job suck? Does that job suck? We explore the good and bad things of every job, including our own jobs. We're willing to talk about it. It's being objective and learning that no job is perfect. You can't be happy with any job in the world. Every job in the world has its faults. And sometimes just being in your own job is the best thing you can ever ask for.
The stand comedy scene in Singapore is growing. People get a lot more what joke is. People kind of like understand, hey, maybe this is the joke structure, right? Set up punchline, but you can have also storytelling.
Once upon a time, it was a very expat-driven thing. Only like, you know, white people performing for white people. And that's all changed now. You get a more local audience, you get a nice mix because you get a nice mix of comedians as well, talking about local issues, talking about things that matter to Singaporeans.
I think it would definitely get more recognition in the near future. Comedy is a must. I feel like there is a need for comedy, all these comedy shows, because it's a pain relief.
The ones who did the best are those who are able to bare their soul to a group of strangers, which is the hardest thing to do.
For people that want to do comedy in Singapore, the best advice is to just do it, because the industry is still pretty young. It's been 7-8 years in, so there's really no judgment. Anybody can be very, very good, anybody can be very, very bad.
Just give it a shot. Just come onto the shows, try, and don't be afraid of failing. A lot of people show up and they don't do well the first time and they never come back again.
The advice was being given by Wai Sing. He says that your best gig is always your next gig.
Complete a mission together, right? Together. You're completing a mission, right, is to not get pregnant. Thank you guys.